All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. We are here for Collections on the Move, low-cost strategies for museum moving and storage. I apologize if our slides are a little slow. They do seem to lag a little bit. And I hate to push the button more than once because then they just stop. Bear with me. Let me try it this way. Okay. Our partners are the Florida Humanities, Florida Arts and Culture, and Visit Florida. A few housekeeping things just that you should know about. First of all, your FAM staff, Melinda Horton. She's our executive director, and mine, Laura Nimmers. I'm the FAM Foundation program manager. Um, we have closed caption available if you use the CC on your control panel. Just so you know, this presentation is being recorded, so if you need it for future use, you can always go back and take a look. If you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat box. After this program is done, we will have a feedback survey, and if you could please fill it out, that informs us of what kinds of webinars you might want to see in the future, and it gives Sarah some feedback on, just what she's done for the presentation today. And on that note, I want to introduce today's speaker, Sarah Smith. She's the Senior Registrar at the Tampa Museum of Art. Sarah?
Hello. Okay, great. Thanks for coming, everybody. I see a lot of familiar names and faces on the call, which is really nice. So yeah, today we're going to talk about moving your collection. I want to go over some key aspects of moving your collection, things to keep in mind. I'm also going to go over the collections move at the TMA, the Tampa Museum of Art, and talk about what worked for us, what didn't work for us, and then go over a couple of low-cost strategies for methods of storage and moving. With that being said, everyone's collections move is going to be very unique and distinct to their collection. Your type of collection is going to dictate some ways you move your collection. Your institution will also dictate things about how you move your collection for the unique needs of your collection and your institution. So I just keeping that in mind that my collections move was what worked for the Tampa Museum of Art. Your collections move is going to be tailored to your unique needs. Oops. Slide delay. I'll move it. Okay, so collections moves will have distinct phases. It's going to start with planning, which is going to take a lot of time. Then you're going to move into prepping for your move, which will have a very distinct checklist of things to move through. Then you're going to transition to packing if you're going off-site, moving, you're maybe potentially within a building, or transit to an external location. Then you're going to unpack and you're going to do a ton of reconciling. Okay. Lots of reconciling. So just in general, your collections move may look a little something like this once the slide changes. So your collections move because we all have different types of collections, right? I'm in an art museum. You might be natural history. You might be a space museum. Your collections move might look something more like this, moving very large objects, flatbed trucks, special armatures to move and stabilize objects. Or it could look a little bit more like classic loading and unloading of a truck, crates moving. Or it could look a little bit like this. That is something that your collections move could be utilizing more soft packed materials, using conveyances like A-frames, art carts, things like that. So that's just to, really emphasize that everyone's move is going to be a little different, but it has some like key fundamental things that we should all be working through. So I think once you're, before you get into anything, you've got to evaluate a few things. That's your new space, your resources, your limitations, and your opportunities. So for your new space, things that you need to evaluate, are you gaining or are you losing space? Are you moving into a purpose-built space or are you retrofitting a space? Is it move-in ready? What is the access like? What is your art movement path? And I said art movement because I'm thinking about the fact that I'm moving art. Your collection might not be art. So how are you going to move those things within the space? And then what are your resources that you need to evaluate? You need to think about what supplies you already have, what money you're working with for this project. What do you have storage furniture that you can utilize in your new space? What are your people resources? Who's actually going to do this work? What kind of leadership support do you have? Because if you have good leadership support, that's going to help with your project a lot. Do you have vehicles that you can use for your move? Do you have the art carts, the A-frames, the things like that? And then your database is certainly a resource, so you need to evaluate how you're going to use your database. You also need to evaluate your limitations of your project. So your limitations being time, you're only going to have a certain amount of time for this project. Also with money, you're going to have limitations in money, which will dictate what you can and you can't do. You're going to have HR limitations in how many people / how many bodies do you have to actually execute this project. And you're going to have space limitations, as we all do, but you're definitely going to have limitations in your new space that you have to consider. And then I think it's really important to consider your limitations in energy. And I mean that by your own personal energy of what you can achieve during this project, but also the energy that you have to give to this, because you may have to continue normal operations. I don't know if you see that pop up like I do on my screen. Limitations in you're still maybe turning over exhibitions, you're still accessioning objects, you still have to do your day-to-day operations on top of your move, or maybe your move is your sole focus, right? But these are limitations in your energy and time that you need to contemplate before you start. You should evaluate your opportunities, because a lot of great things can come out of your collections move. It is very rare that in a collections move you get to see, or before a collections move, that you get to see the full scope down to an item level of your collection. At the Tampa Museum of Art, we have 9,000 objects in the collection, and up until the collections move, I saw a fraction of them. The opportunity to capture a lot of collections information. You're going to be able to get snippets of information that you normally would not be able to do unless you're actually moving every single object. It's an opportunity to make a lot of improvements to your collection storage area and improvements to your collections care in general. It's also a great opportunity for staff to get a lot of experience, not only with the collection, but with art handling, with registrars for the process of going through this, with database experience. And then it's a great opportunity to also isolate your found in collection items. When you're moving them, you do have the opportunity to say, I'm going to quarantine these to one area so I can better be able to focus on them. And then another opportunity is just in general, resolve some long-standing issues. You may not want to deal with some of these things, but you're going to be forced to deal with them as you move through this process. So you're going to get a lot out of this, but it's going to be a big project. So once you've evaluated what you have to work with, your limitations, your opportunities, you need to establish your goals. So this is part of the planning phase. It's very important that you start your project with clear goals in mind, because there's a lot of things you can do, but there's also going to be things that you can't do, and you need to be realistic about what you can achieve. So things to contemplate are you going to try to do a complete inventory? Are you going to try to completely rehouse everything from one space into the next? Or are you simply relocating? Are you saying everything out of this room goes into this room, period? Are you going to do a total reorganization of your collections? Are you going to do new storage location systems? There's a good chance that you're moving from one space to one space isn't going to have the same furniture or just the same cabinetry. Are you going to do new housing methods for every single thing? Are you going to be packing just for transport? Or are you going to pack for storage once you do arrive in your space? Are you going to make improvements to your new space before you start? Are you going to number every object as you go through the process? Are you going to upgrade all aspects of your collections care, or are you just going to focus on some? Oh, slide just jumped. I'm going to jump it back. Okay. And then are you going to implement new procedures? And are you going to try to get images of everything? I think it's very important that you prioritize what you can actually achieve. And then for the other things, phase your upgrades later as you go down the road, because you are certainly going to have some constraints that you have to work in. So you know your resources, you've planned your goals. Now you actually need to prep for the move. A big place to start is to estimate your storage requirements, including your specialty and oversized objects. So if you're moving into a new space, maybe you're going to be able to have the opportunity to design it and lay it out the way you are. Or you might be working with a retrofit space, and it's really important that you keep room and hold space for your oversized stuff and the things that have specialty needs. You are going to need to create procedures for movement tracking. Those are going to be tailored again to your space and what you're trying to capture out of your move. You are going to need to create a procedure for when you come across undocumented objects in your collection. How are you going to deal with them right there when you find them? You're going to need to create a weekly schedule. I suggest creating a weekly schedule and then creating an overall project timeline, including all of your existing projects and your day-to-day activities that you still need to do. You are also going to need to communicate with all your stakeholders, like your lenders, maybe other institutions you're working with. You are going to want to create your priority collections projects to complete ahead of time. Also, you're going to want to prepare for what are your packing and transport methods going to be. And you're going to possibly need to create new location authorities within your database. You're going to need to find all those resources that you don't have, but you need to acquire, such as hiring extra people or fundraising for the move itself. You're going to need to purchase all of your supplies and equipment that you need ahead of time. And you're going to probably need to complete a list of pre-move building projects. And you're also going to want to train your staff on what they're going to be doing on a day-to-day basis. So now that you've done that, you've planned, you've got your goals, you've prepped, it's time to move. So things to keep in mind are that I think you should expect a lot of surprises. You're going to come across surprises not only in your collections area, but don't be surprised if things come up that are outside of your area that will affect you, such as maybe construction or projects like whammies, what I call whammies that get thrown at you that were not on your next 3 months, but now there's something you have to deal with. I think that you should expect that you're going to move fast, and slow. You're going to have periods where you get a ton accomplished really quickly, and then you're going to slow down because you're going to hit bumps in the road. That is why I think it's important to track your progress against your timeline so that you can know when you need to get concerned to speed up or slow down a bit. And plan for real-time problem solving as the registrars or collections managers role in this project. People are going to look to you for how are we going to deal with these projects when we come across them. So you're going to need to be thinking on your feet. And in general, I think it's best for the registrars and the collections managers to stay ahead of the movement team. Now, I totally understand that lots of us are going to also be that movement team. You're going to have dual roles. It is a luxury to have lots of people to work on these projects, but somebody needs to be keeping ahead of that daily schedule to keep everybody on track. And you're going to need to reconcile, and do more reconciliation throughout the project because that is a huge aspect of the collections move. So at the Tampa Museum of Art, our collections move was based around a building renovation. So in 2022, our building was being renovated with the goal of creating 5 new galleries. This project started on January 24th. I needed to end by May 19th. During this period, although we were under construction, the museum was maintaining normal operations. So we are only closed 2 days a year. So we were open basically 7 days a week. All of our regular exhibitions needed to be mounted. We needed to do all of our accessionings, loans. We also needed to be planning for installing those 5 new galleries once they did open, and we needed to move the collection. So we had quite a few things going on, and we had to move a collection of 9,000 objects within 3 months. Again, this is all on site. So this is TMA specific. Your collections move will have different constraints. The goals that we established was to condense storage. We need to move 3 distinct collection storage spaces into one, and we need to condense 5 prep spaces into one. A goal for us was to capture new locations, unframe and rehouse works on paper, tag everything, and do a major clean house. Our human resources to do that was myself, a chief preparator, assistant registrar, 2 full-time art handlers that were on staff, and 2 contracted art handlers that we hired for that 3-month period. Our TMA storage spaces are a painting storage, 3D storage, and a works on paper storage. And the collection support areas were a carpentry shop, crate storage, furniture storage, matting and framing, and a service corridor. So this is what the floor plan that we have of our second floor at the museum, which is where all of our galleries and our collections areas are. The red area were the spaces that were going to go under renovation, and these were the back of the house spaces. So everything, which about half of our floor plan, was dedicated to back of the house. And a goal was to create more forward front-facing gallery spaces. So this is the back of the house before the renovation. As you can see, we have 3 art storage spaces that are designated in blue. And I see that people want my volume up. Let me see. I think I am at max on my end. Sorry. And then we have 3 prep spaces, which are indicated in the green, which was the crate storage, the furniture storage, the wood shop, the framing, and then those kind of corridors along the side were what we were calling these service corridors, where basically everything extra just landed. So we had a total of 8,000 square feet of space. 4,000 of it was art storage, 4,000 of it was preps, right? That's a very generous amount of space that we had. This is what the new plan was going to be. All of the other areas that turn gray are gallery spaces. We have 1 gallery prep space, 1 art storage space. So now we have a total of 4,500 square feet, which means we had a loss of 3,500 square feet for us, which was huge, right? So that's why one of our big goals was a major clean house, because we no longer had the luxury of having a lot of stuff. So these are some pictures of before the renovation, what our spaces looked like. I don't have great pictures, but this is what I've got just to show some things. So this was our furniture storage. As you can see, there was a lot of crates in hallways. We had high density shelving. We had all these wonderful Delta cabinets, large oversized racking for 3D objects. This is another view where you could see the oversized racks are full with large sculpture. We have at the TMA, we collect antiquities and contemporary, and we don't do anything in between. So we tend to have a lot of fragile antiquities like ceramics, ancient metals, and then a lot of uber contemporary things that are large and made out of non-traditional materials. And then this is a review of our painting storage. Painting storage was pretty small. It only consisted of about, I think, 10 painting screens that were pretty small in the back of the room. And then we had all of this bin shelving. So as you can see here, there's crates stored in here. There's objects leaned on the floor. There was lots of binned artwork that was framed. And that's a big trend for our collection. It was a lot of things were already framed. This is another view where you can see the size of our painting screen. So not a lot of vertical storage for paintings. And then a work on paper just view of all of the Solander boxes, S boxes that we have that are filled with loose works on paper. And then this is another view from our works on paper room. So just bins and bins and bins of framed works on papers and photos. We have some flat files. A lot of working space. Through that doorway in the back was another room just filled with cubbies with framed works. And then this was our crate storage. It was a huge amount of stuff. It was like almost like a mountain you couldn't see over. Admittedly, when I started here, I was a little bit like, wow, we have a lot of stuff on hand. These were crates for things just in case they went out. This was also where, yeah, a lot of stuff, right? Here is furniture storage, another just mountain of casework, racks of supplies, every type of supplies that you might need. I mean, we were rich in supplies, but also it was so disorganized, we didn't really know what we had. So this room I kind of avoided a lot, but just to show the sheer amount of density of stuff we had. So those are our spaces. We were working with an architect. So I was basically set up to work with the architects who were dictating a lot of the storage design, which creates a whole conundrum of issues in itself, because they were trying to tell us things that this is how it needs to be. This is the best way to have it happen. But they are people that have never worked with a collection and don't understand that your storage room might be your work room, your matting and framing room, your temporary crate storage. Like, this is very much a collection space, but a working space for us. And so there was a lot of back and forth. I would say that if you have to work with an architect on this, you need to hold your ground and really advocate for what you need, because they're going to set up something that looks maybe beautiful for them to take photos of, but it's not going to be functional for you. So this was the first round of a floor plan that they gave us saying, all right, we're going to put your painting screens in the middle of the room. We're going to surround the room with closed cabinetry. You should be good. And they were really selling pie in the sky. You are quadrupling your space. You are getting so much more high density storage that you have no problems. And we were immediately like, red flag, we've got some problems. This isn't going to work. So when it came to working with them back and forth, one of the things I had to really say is that we had to go vertical because we had a limited floor space. Everything had to be stacked. Everything had to go tall. Otherwise we weren't going to fit things. And I think in general, as we all have storage space issues, storage and space is always a problem that we all have. You have to go vertical sometimes because that's the only space that you have left. But while also going vertical, you need to leave yourself some horizontal working space. You need to create custom spots for your major collection items. So like anchoring some of those large objects in the space so that you can then see this is what I actually have left to work with. And you also need to try to leave yourself room for growth because we're all always growing our collections. And you need to remember those unique objects that have specialty storage needs, like for instance, textiles. Wheels, whatever can be on wheels and whatever can move should. Flexibility is going to be key. You'll see how we have to use our space for multiple purposes. But then when it also comes to designing storage, you need to remember things like where your power outlet's going to be. What about Ethernet ports so that maybe you can access your collection while you're in storage? How much overhead space is the lighting that's being planned going to actually take up and eat away from you being able to go vertical? Make sure you're planning for your door heights to be high enough so you can have the clearance that you need. You've got to contemplate your access, which is going to be, is it going to be keyed? Is it going to be swipe card? Is it going to be keypad? And then you also have to plan room for your facility support items that just will inherently eat up room, like your fire panels and your alarm panels. Again, that's all going to be unique to your space, but these are things that we found that needed to be factored in. So this is another updated view of the room. We did get these high density painting storage screens that are 15 by 20 feet. So just we did really grow our vertical painting screen space by a lot. You can see on the right, there's a horizontal workspace that they've planned to have us there. But also on the left of the room, there was another horizontal workspace planned. And I was like, well, horizontal workspace is great. There was still a lot of large collections that didn't have a home in the room. So we needed to create some custom things. Oh yeah, this one is textile storage. So as a contemporary museum, we have some textiles in our collection. I also worked at a textile museum before this, so I'm kind of passionate about it. But textiles need a certain type of housing for them to be happily stored for the long term. Not everything is happy being boxed up and put on a shelf. So I wanted to take one of the painting screens and turn it into a movable textile rack that has these rods that can come out of it. So you can put tubes so you can roll your textiles and store them vertically on what is a painting screen. I got this idea from something that the Harn Museum of Art, where I used to work, they had one of those. And I thought we really needed to get one for our storage space. That is room for growth, and that covers all of the unique needs for the textiles. We also needed to create those custom storage cubbies for a specific type of collection. So when I said that the room had 2 horizontal workspaces, I knew that we needed to change one of them to also be just vertical storage for this collection that we have. So we have this Purvis Young collection, which is on display right now, but it will be coming down. All of these are wood panels that overlap. They're very large. They don't hang very well. So we have created these vertical cubbies to store them in above the flat files. So we basically lost all that as a horizontal workspace, but we created a place for this to go, because if not, when it would have come off display, we would have been in a world of pain because we wouldn't have had anywhere to put it. Another thing that we did that's custom is the front rack. We have a piece in our collection by Mabel Poblet. It's made out of a lot of materials that it's a kinetic sculpture. It moves, breaks down all the time. It's got a lot of conservation issues. It leaks oil and fluids. So we wanted that to be up front because also it's a fan favorite and we're asked to put it on display all the time, but it can't really, with its structure, support itself on a painting screen. So we had one of the painting screens retrofitted with this kind of like metal shelf lip on the bottom. So the screen still moves out like it's on wheels, like a normal painting screen, but now it can also hold the weight of some objects on it. And we have found that that has been very useful to us. Also, the picture on the right is of a very large sculpture that admittedly our institution will not display, but we are not at a place to deaccession right now. So it needed a place to land. So we found this cubby. We've parked it there with a couple of other unfortunate sculptures that have some issues with them. They are left on pallets so that we can move them out if we need be. But basically that has turned into a semi-permanent location for it, and we just work around it. Again, that horizontal work surface that we did maintain has been very useful. I think I have a picture of it later. But if you can keep one space to yourself, please do, because of the ever rotating nature of what we do. Vertical. So we actually got 2 rows of closed cabinet doors that are high density that we have stacked. So they go about, I think it's 14 or 15 feet tall, which means that top row that's green can only be accessed by a rolling stair ladder, right? So that was a part of equipment we knew we needed to buy ahead of time because otherwise we wouldn't be able to get stuff in there. It is not the best for moving objects because you do have to go basically up a flight of stairs to get there. But what we did do was utilize and put up the collection up there that are things that are, we know are very rarely used and accessed, so that we're really not going in and out of them very much. But this was super important for us that we had to go tall. Here, the little arrows, this is a view pointing down on our painting screens, because different things in your collection are probably all not going to be uniform in depth. We created the back 2 rows to have more spacing in between each of the screens so that we could put there any of the things that have a lot of extra depth, like ornate frames or contemporary things that are like 5 or 6 inches deep. That was something that we decided at the last minute because we realized that we were just going to have things that just weren't going to work on the screens. And if they didn't fit on the screens, we didn't have anywhere to put them. And what you might notice for this is that we do not have a lot of binned space to put framed stuff. So the TMA had to come to the realization that we could not keep things framed in the quantity that we were having because we simply don't have the space to put them anymore. And again, that's why that was one of our big priorities. Supplies, just to say, the things that we needed are listed on here, which are very, I would say, basic, straightforward things. C-bins, cardboards, chloroplast tissue, interleaving paper. I won't read all of them, but these supplies were dictated by the goals that we were trying to achieve. So one of the biggest things that we spent money on was actually C-bins, so the commercial cardboard bins, and cardboard, because we knew that for temporarily, because of the renovation phasing schedule, we had to put things in C-bins on wheels. So we had to buy about 40, maybe even 50 C-bins and a ton of cardboard to act as dividers on the in-between. We spent $8,500 on supplies. And I will say that I know for a lot of museums that could just be a huge amount. For us, that was the most we've ever spent on any collection supplies. And a lot of those supplies were not just for move, they were for the long-term care and storage of things once they were in the collection. And admittedly, we don't even have a yearly budget for collection care supplies at all. So that was a big expense for us. Even though we were doing a $14 million renovation, our budget for this project was very small. But I just want to say that I know what it's like to work like a collection, that amount of money is a lot. I put a list things of off-site moving supplies that you might need, like moving straps, strapping tape, plastic bubble, boxes, carts, dollies, pallet jacks, J-bars, lifts, because if you're doing an off-site move, it's going to have a whole set of circumstances and supplies that you're going to need that we did not need for this move at the Tampa Museum of Art. So pre-move projects for us, because of condensing our space was a relocation and condensing spaces with the construction schedule. So I was basically given a timeline from the construction company saying, we're going to demo this space, then we're going to jump here, and then we're going to jump here. And I had to fit our collections move around the spaces that were being demoed. I will just say that I did try to advocate to get everything moved off site and then moved back on site, but that was not feasible with our budget. We had to do a massive unframing. We unframed about 900 objects. So that massing of framing had to happen before we got into the new space. That's why that was one of our priority projects to complete. We also had to coordinate the removal of all of that frame storage. Pre-move project was also a little bit of renumbering and rehousing, going through doing an audit of things that were glaring that I knew I didn't know numbers on, but I knew I could figure out quickly. And then creating the plan to track the object movement. And that is going to be something that's unique to your move as well. I had to create the timeline, create the new locations, order the supplies, make a ton of snakes and bean bags, because when I started at the Tampa Museum in 2019, one of the things I noticed right away was everything that was on the shelves was just kind of sitting there and didn't have any kind of stabilizing anything to stop it from just rolling around. And I was like, how are we going to move all these objects without anything to even put it on the cart to protect it from rattling as it gets to its next location? So we wanted to pre-make all of those snakes and bean bags. And we also were going to make A-frames because we didn't really have the money to buy A-frames. So we decided while we had a carpentry shop, we would make our own A-frames. So that was a pre-move project. With all the workspaces, that was a whole different set of projects. We had to evaluate all the furniture for keep or trash. We had to cut up all the crates and deal with the furniture disposal. We had to arrange tons of donation pickups. We had to evaluate our woodshop tools, equipment, and deal with the disposal. We had to even dismantle all the furniture that was in the woodshop and the other spaces ourselves, figure out where those were going. We had to pack and condense our supplies for what we could keep and what we were going to relocate. And we also, in the mix of that, had to move our offices. All the curatorial staff was located on the second floor. And when I say move the offices, we had to move our offices. We had to move the furniture, the computers, the flat files, everything. And then we had to do an insane amount of cleaning for the new space, or the cleaning of the old spaces. So this is just like a couple of pictures of bins that are just filled with empty frames, but we got rid of 900 frames. The TMA did not have a standardized framing, like frame methods and materials. So everything just kind of had to go because we didn't have the luxury of keeping it. We tried to get rid of as many things to other institutions and Habitat Humanity as possible, and every staff member in the TMA definitely got a ton of frames. So this was what the order of operations looked like that was based off of the phasing from the construction companies. First thing was we had to move the works on paper storage because that was where our new storage was going to be. So we had to get that emptied so that we could ultimately move in there. So we had to bin all that framework. We had to move flat files into 3D storage. So the binned artwork went into the gallery. The flat files went into 3D storage. We closed that gallery so that we could take it over as a space to do some of this work. We had to reorganize all those flat files to make storage. And then we unframed 900 pieces of artwork and had to rehouse them. And in that stage, that included identifying and renumbering the housing methods, and then recording the locations of where they were at in that moment. And then again, we were evaluating and trashing the 3 spaces with the X on them. So while we were dealing with works on paper, we were also just doing a massive purge. And so once we did that and new storage was ready for us to move in, this is what the art movement path looked like. Painting storage was the first space indicated with number 1 that had to get emptied out. It had to go through the wood shop that was also literally being demoed in that same moment. So how we did that was the construction company, this kind of curvy mustard colored line, we actually built a tunnel out of plastic and plywood for us to move through with the art so that we were not exposed to the chaos of the demo and the dust and the dirt that everything gets kicked up. So that space is getting demoed. The furniture storage is getting demoed. everywhere's getting demoed. And so once we moved painting storage up and around and into new storage, we had to move 3D storage. Then we go up the hallway through the two demoed spaces. And right next to new storage is where our freight elevator is. That freight elevator was being used not only by us, but by the construction team. So when you got to this one point, when you came around the corner, it was like two worlds that should not mix came together, and that was construction and collections. So it was a lot. So boom, surprise. Remember how I said you got to expect surprises? I have two surprises that happened. One, the timing of everything landed when the county decided to give us money to upgrade our collection storage, our database, because they wanted our collection online. This was something they agreed to do during COVID. Things took a while. Now here we are. I'm trying to move the collection, and they say it's time to migrate to TMS. So I went from FileMaker Pro to TMS while I'm also moving the whole collection. So I had to take data out of one and put it into another. And if anyone's done a database migration, you know that that's a lot of work in itself. So on top of this, I was kind of losing my mind. And then we had changes to the construction schedule because of supply chain issues. And because of that, they were working on the weekends, and I came in on a Monday and I had a wall that was built that was not supposed to be built there that caused some problems. So I took a little video that day when I came into the office to share with my curator who wasn't there. And it's not the best video, but I just wanted to show you where we're at, and hopefully you can hear it okay. It's short. Can you play it, Laura? Is it working for you? Oh, there we go. I don't hear anything. I don't know if you guys hear anything. Okay, so no one's hearing anything, so I'm just going to say what you just saw. But as you came around, yeah, this video is chaotic. As you came around the corner from that purple room, there was this wall, like you saw dry frame with the aluminum, whatever's in a wall, I can't remember, that was there. That wall was not supposed to be built yet. So when they built that wall, they essentially trapped our painting storage in so that I couldn't get big things out, because on the other side of the wall, there was double doors. Well, when they built that wall, all of a sudden I had one single sized regular door to move big paintings out of. Well, that just doesn't work. So on top of everything, then we had to build a little mini room in collection storage so then we could cut a door out that was wide enough to get the big paintings out. So when I say like surprise, a wall was built, it wasn't supposed to be there. That really impacted our flow, and that was another hiccup. So that's what I mean. You got to pivot. You got to be prepared for those things. Oh, here we go. Okay, so then this is a picture of what inside 3D storage looks like. This was the hallway where we moved all of the works on paper, flat files, Solider boxes, put up folding tables, and that's where we were doing a lot of the, once things were unframed in that gallery, they made it over here. Somebody was starting to put the interleaving, putting the numbers, and recording where they were distributing it amongst these flat files and S boxes. Since you couldn't hear anything, we're going to skip this slide because this was a slide showing the extreme amount of noise while we were actually moving the stuff in because we were in an active construction zone. Oh, forget it. All right, forget it. Let's go. Okay. This is a view of us just starting to put the stuff on the painting screens. I just want to note that we were putting them in as close as possible. We were packing them super tight and like keeping them maybe tighter than you would on a painting screen because we really weren't totally sure that I was going to be able to get everything on the screens. Also, this is just another view that, oh, well, we were de-installing some antiquities exhibitions and everything had to land in here. I had nowhere else to put it. So this space we had to pause for exhibition activities and then resume for the collections move. And then this is just a reminder that once we get into a space, if you are working in a construction zone, the amount of dust that will go through the HVAC system, as much as you try, it's going to get in your spaces. So this was our new prep space, the one and only prep space that we were moving into. And I kid you not, the walls and the floors got cleaned at least like 5 times, because every time we thought we were good, something would happen in construction and it would just fill up with dust again, which was a whole nightmare in itself. But just keep in mind the amount of dust and cleaning and time you might need for cleaning in your move. Okay, so movement tracking, this is what I recommend. You should always have at least a team of 2. You should finish one location before jumping to another. You're going to need to switch roles throughout the day because people are going to get exhausted reading out numbers. Attempt a little reconciliation every day just to stay on top of it. And for us, we had a binder, a distinct binder for each location, because I will say this was 2022. We did not even own an iPad at that time. We were doing all of this very analog on paper, and that's how we were tracking it. Barcodes, things like that, going everything digital might work for your institution, but where we were at, working with our data coming out of FileMaker Pro, this is what we needed to do. The general procedure was you would select a location, the reader says the object number out loud, the documenter finds the object on the list and checks yes, saying it's in that spot. They would date it and initial. After one location has been totally inventoried and the objects have been moved, any remaining objects listed in that location that are supposed to be there, I would check the no box to say, no, it was not found here. And then any objects found in that location that are not on the list got added to sheets at the end for additional objects that would be reconciled throughout the project. This was like a very basic inventorying, movement tracking method. But how we organized the movement tracking sheets and actually how we made them was the data came out of the old database. It was every field was exported as a CSV export document. It was sorted by the location hierarchy. I had to do some like Excel research to get it all to work out so that I could take 300 pages of Excel data and sort it by the location. So like biggest cabinet to shelf, room cabinet shelf, put some basic identifying object information that I thought could be helpful for identifying the objects in the event there was no number, such as artist name, title, medium, and dimensions, a yes, no checkbox, a new location column, notes, and then the section for the wrong locations, FICs, and then reconciliation. So it was, our data was out of one database and then imported into a new database. And then the locations were reconciled one by one. So for us, that meant locations of the old space did not match up with the locations of the new space. So that's why we had to go into the database and create new location authorities. So this is just a snapshot of what that sheet looked like. So we had we ended up having about 300 pages of this for the 9,000 objects in the collection. So it started with like aisle, just because it was sorted alpha, and then shelf, its session number, exactly as I said. You could see the crazy handwriting on here. And then when it was highlighted, that was part of the reconciliation process. So when I've just got an image just to show this is a video. Hopefully it'll play. Well, it's not going to play. Maybe it's going to play. Okay, so basically I scanned all the sheets so that we have those in our, on our collections files, because these are going to be useful for future location, finding things that get missed, things that have been put in the wrong drawers and recorded wrong in the database. In fact, we just had that happen this week where I went to pull something that was in flat file 7. It wasn't, it ended up in 17. And that happened when the person was changing it in the database. So we highlighted every individual object as it was moved into the new database. You could see she went through like tons of colors because highlighters were running up. But this was just to show you the scale of it. Okay, so the wildcard objects that you're inevitably going to find, right? You have to come up with a system of how you're going to flag all those things that you find in collection that don't have numbers. So for us, what worked was we had a red tag, blue tag situation. Red tags were objects that had no numbers at all, couldn't find a number, clearly had no idea what it is. We tagged it with these red tags so that they would stand out when they're on the shelves. We created a running list of all these red no number tags. We would record the location, description, date, and located, and then later reconcile that against a known group of found in collection items. Blue tags. Blue tags were for anything that needed to be unpacked and uncrated that we just simply in the move didn't have time to do. So this was saying, I don't really know if it doesn't have a number yet. This is like a to be investigated situation. This was really most for things that were packed in crate or boxes. We just didn't have the time to deal with them. And these were things that I didn't get to before the move started. Once they're unpacked and they still can't be identified, they transition to red tags. That was a very simple way of us dealing with this. So outcomes of this project was lost objects were located. Everything was ultimately tagged or noted as red. We had a list of projects of things that we knew we needed to deal with, like things that we came across that were kind of literally falling apart. Majority of objects have locations in TMS, and I'm going to say majority of objects because still there's a couple of records that still need to be sorted out. I still have red tagged objects that need to be worked through. And yes, that was 2022. It is 2026, but we stay pretty busy, as everyone on this call does. The major unframing resulted in a standardization of framing. So now we have one stock of frame supplies. Everything goes in a standard size, and that helped us immensely. We are way more organized than we ever were. Our lack of space means stricter cleanup like procedures. We don't have the luxury of being a mess, which is good. We know exactly what we have and what we don't have to work with in terms of supplies, caseworks, grading. We have a very experienced team with an institutional knowledge of where things are at. And then we have a very lean, mean collections team that I am very proud of with the amount of things that we get done. So these are some pictures of what our collection storage looks like right now. So this is the open space in between the painting screens. That is the oversized shelving in the back. As you can see, if we're going to get to the top, we got to use a lift. This is that horizontal workspace that I said, please keep one for yourself. Well, we use it all the time. This is a temporary landing space for things. And also those S boxes that were filled with prints that we were told by the architects would fit in the fat files, they don't. So now they just live here. So I'm glad we have that space. Our cabinets are very tightly packed, but they're pretty well organized. And you can see that we have a lot of snakes and bean bags on the shelves to protect them from falling over. And we have been able to separate our collection by here's where all the metals are, here's where all the antiquities are, which has been really good for us to find objects quicker. And then this is one of our workspaces where we just had to go vertical because we don't have anything else. So these wall-mounted slats with these little U-line boxes are great for your prep stuff. Our prep team made all those shelves, mounted all those tools because we just don't have anywhere else to put them. This is our workspace, our prep space, which this is all of our furniture, crate storage, packing materials, everything is here. And that was a picture of like last week. But the reality is that this is what collection storage looks like a lot. This is our landing spot for all of our incoming created artwork. So sometimes there's large periods of time where we cannot access most of the collection. This is also what it looks like from another view, that the perimeter hallways are just filled. It is a mountain of stuff that you cannot get through. So that's just is our reality. Some of the things that we did to try to save money was making our own snake and bean bags. I don't know if any of you have gone to purchase these. They're crazy expensive if you're going to buy one. We made hundreds of them. We never would have been able to buy them, so we made them all ourselves in many different sizes. We made 3 A-frames. We did some custom boxes. And for us, a big art cost-saving things was hiring 2 full-time for 1 year art handlers versus hiring all contractors. It was way much more of a cost saving method for us to bring on 2 people for a year versus bringing on 2 additional people for the move. So I had 2 in-house and 2 out of house. For us, that made a huge difference. I had to advocate that with leadership, but it worked out to our benefit because we were able to keep the people later. This is our chief prep who was making some of the bean bags ourselves with the sewing machine. Really for this, which if anybody wants more information on this, they can reach out. It's unbleached cotton muslin for the bean bags, stockinette tubing for the snakes, poly pellets, which are polyethylene doll stuffing pellets, string, and the sewing machine. So that was one of our pre-move projects that when somebody had downtime, I was like, get on the sewing machine. Or if you don't have downtime and you're so gassed from all of the chaos, you can start sewing. Our A-frames that we made are a pretty simple shape, but we made 3 of them using leftover paint, a lot of leftover wood from things that we demoed. It's a shower handlebar, and then casters, and then foam on the bottom. So if you have a wood shop and you can make your own, I try to do it. This is a bad picture, but of these boxes that we made for we have a Haitian beaded flag collection. These are Coroplast. We use MDO, basically cut like a cleat on the side to help brace the box, screws, and tape. So we made a lot of boxes that are pretty big that hold a big chunk of a collection for very little money. Okay, and if you guys don't know about this, you should really check it out. It's Stash. It's a website by the AIC, American Institute of Conservation. On this website, they have so many how-to methods for making your own storage solutions, a lot of it with very low cost supplies and methods. It's basically using what you have to get the job done. It is the biggest resource I think any of us could do for finding solutions that fit our unique spaces and our limited supply budgets. We didn't need to make a lot of these because we weren't moving off site. I got these images from a colleague who I believe is on this call, Maddie. These are some things that they did when they moved their collection. They made cavity packed foam boxes. They made custom storage cradles and trays, retrofitting, different trays for unique objects, foam blocks simply with Tyvek covering it for transport. I listed 2 pages of resources, a lot of them that we're familiar with, but there is a lot of resources on moving your collection, which can actually be kind of overwhelming when you're looking for a place to start, but I just listed some. And with that, I've reached the end of the presentation. So does anybody have any questions? And thank you for listening.
I think that Laura is having issues with her screen. So she's going to try. Oh, you're off. You're off.
I managed to escape. I don't know what the tech issue was, but it only showed Sarah's screen. I couldn't see the chat box. I couldn't see anything except for what she was showing. So, but can you hear me okay?
Yes. And
okay, good.
I see we have one question. Did we lose our wood shop? Yes, we lost our wood shop in its entirety. So now what we have to do is when the loading dock is not used for loading dock reasons and events, we set up a basically on the mobile wood shop, which is not a great solution. It does not work well for us. I'll just say that. So we lost a lot of integral space to do a lot of work that we need to do. So, yeah.
So are you farming out your wood shop stuff?
No, we still make everything custom. Sometimes the guys are literally on the sidewalk outside of the museum doing it. We have 3 amazing preparators and 2 that have a really great background in carpentry. So they will, the reality is we don't outsource any mount making. We make most of our own cases with the exception of the plexi tops. We kind of do everything, which was the takeaway from that we did get to keep those 2 art handlers. It became well, if you get these extra people, you can't outsource anything. So, but we do a lot with a little, and having this like very slim, streamlined space makes it so that we cannot be a mess. We cannot be sloppy, and we really have to use the things that we have to our advantage. So
with all that space, you talked about how tight the space is. Do you have room for growth?
Very minimal. I will say the painting screens are about to burst and explode. Our flat files does have a little bit room for filling up, but I am me and my colleague who's on this call, we are always waving the warning flag that we are not going to be able to take in a large collection, which is a real shame because we're getting more and more offers and we're about to do an expansion. So our institution is going to be faced with the offsite storage that we're going to have to get. And I see there's a question on thoughts on best ways to do offsite storage. Storage units are getting pricey and access and security, climate controls, and no workspace. But renovating and leasing a park space seems even more costly with potential problems and other tenants. Yes, we have only successfully put empty crates with the permission from lenders in a climate controlled off-site space. That is it. So this does not have great security, but it is climate controlled. We are not doing any off-site art storage space because we can't afford it. So our stuff is in a mixed storage space unit. That might not work for your needs. I have found Crozier recently opened an art storage facility near us, and they are very hungry to get some people in there. So they have encouraged me to deeply ask for discounts and just see what they can do. I know that's not going to be the case for a lot of the storage spaces, like definitely down in Miami, that are bursting at the seams and they don't need your business. But a place like a new one that might open, like the one that we did in Palmetto, they really want to work with you to get you in there, and they will offer year-long contracts at a discounted rate. Now, even that discounted rate might be so much that some of us can't afford. Ultimately, we couldn't even afford to do it. So, but just asking around. Also, our museum works with some universities. So there was talk about, could we take over a space in a university? So I don't know if any of you have university connections where it's a you scratch our back, we scratch yours situation. But outside of that, I don't have anything. I'm sorry. I don't know if anyone else on this call does. And we also took our 3D storage rack from 3D, put it in our loading dock, and built like all the way up as high as we could. So our guys get our lift up and put stuff as high as they can up there. Now we do have the threat of the loading dock doors are open and we have some climate control. So I'm not saying put your collection there, but if there's anything that eats up room in your collection that you can get out of there, try to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a good idea if you have extra painting screens, like if you get new ones, to put some on your walls as well.
Good one. Yeah.
Or if you're redoing storage, add them to the walls. That way you can always go up if you need to.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of other questions in the chat box. Obviously, oh, we've got one from Stephanie. She's wanting to know if you do a tutorial on how to make your own snakes and bean bags.
We could do that. I could do that. Maybe we can even record just a video of it and share it, because it's not crazy, but once you get in the flow, you can just knock them out. So yeah.
Make your workshop, your sewing
Yeah.
workshop.
I'm happy to email with anybody, and maybe you probably have my email somewhere, or Laura, maybe you can share it so we could communicate. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're recording this, so you'll obviously have access to this, but if Sarah gives us permission, we'll also send you out a PDF of the PowerPoint.
Oh yeah, totally. And then my email address is on that last slide. So
Yeah.
And I would welcome anybody, if you want to come by the museum. I see somebody maybe wants to visit. Please come by, email me. We all of us registrars, we love having everybody over. Laura's been in my space, so like come on down. We'll give you a tour. We'll show you everything that's going on. Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. And Sarah, thank you so much for your presentation. You're getting all kinds of kudos in the chat box too.
Thank you,
So
everyone.
that's wonderful. You've had great attendance. I do want to let everybody know that our next webinar for February is going to come up on February 24th, and that is going to be called Curating Community Museums as Cultural Hubs. And our speakers will be Tiffany Baker from the Florida Historic Capitol Museum and Grace Robinson from Gadsden Art Center and Museum. So hopefully you can attend those. And if you can't, if you want to encourage any of your other staff to attend that would be fantastic. In addition, if you have any ideas for webinars or something you'd either like to see or something you'd like to participate in, please feel free to email me or Melinda, and we'll try and work something out. We're always looking for interesting programming, anything that can help anybody or something you want to learn about that we can try and match up a speaker for you. So just let us know, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Stay warm.